Improvement Pill here. So I was watching this new documentary about Bill Gates on Netflix the other day, and he said something very interesting in the first episode. He said, word for word, you have to pick a pretty finite number of things to tell your mind to work on. You have to decide what you should care about. And he's right, because if you think about it, our brain is essentially a problem-solving machine, right? We have the ability to think about the past in order to prevent problems that we've already experienced from happening again. And we have the ability to think about the future, imagining hypothetical scenarios, solving problems before they even exist. Our brain is constantly trying to solve problems non-stop. Even when we're not paying attention to it, it's running in the background, coming up with new ideas, trying to find solutions. And it's actually extremely good at this. So good, in fact, that your brain can make any of your wishes and desires come true. That is, if you know how to use it correctly. So today, I'm going to go over a simple 3-step process for using your brain the right way. Make sure you watch this video till the very end if you want to make your dreams come true. Step number 1, you must instill belief. When you don't believe you can do something, your brain won't even bother to try and solve that problem. For example, if deep down inside you don't really believe that you'll be able to one day own and run a successful business, then your brain is not going to come up with business ideas. It's not going to push you to figuring out all the little components needed to make this dream come true. Like, how do you set up the business? How do you get the logo? How do you manufacture the product? Etc. Because it thinks the entire idea is impossible. It's going to think, why should I focus on figuring out all the smaller components of starting a business when we don't even believe that we'll ever run a successful business? It's a waste of time. Instead, it'll focus on what it thinks is possible for you to actually accomplish. Like, how do I do better in school? Or how do I climb the corporate ladder? Or even, how can I get better at this video game? You need to genuinely believe that you are capable of doing something in order for your brain to start working on solving that problem. But how do you do this? It's simple. All you got to do is look for one small win. When I started my online entrepreneur journey, before I made any money, all I thought about was, okay, I just need to make $100 online in the form of passive income next month, which is like 1,000 times more believable than making $100,000 passive income every month. And because I set my eyes on such a small win, it wasn't really hard to convince myself that this was possible. And my brain was extremely focused on figuring out a solution to this problem. It thought to itself, this is definitely doable, so I'm going to figure out how to do it. And once I got that small win, it became very easy to scale up. If I can make $100 in a month, it's not so hard to believe that I can eventually make $500 in a month. And once I've done that, I can convince myself that I'll make $1,000 and then $2,000 and so on. Instead of trying to convince yourself that you'll be a social butterfly and the life of a party one day, you should focus on daydreaming about one day simply being able to say hello to some strangers. Instead of trying to convince yourself that one day you'll have the body of a Greek god, you should focus on daydreaming about just losing 5 pounds and having a slightly smaller stomach. Focus on getting your first small win, something that you genuinely believe that you can do, and then scale up from there. Step number 2, you have to feed your brain. The large majority of us solve problems by combining stuff that other people have already discovered. 99.9% of all inventions are simply a combination of things that had already existed before. For example, the bicycle helmet was a combination of a ship's bow, which is the front of the ship, plastic, and foam. In order for your brain to come up with solutions for your problems, it needs to have access to stuff that other people have already figured out so that it can play around with different combinations and come up with solutions. So you got to feed your brain. For example, if you hope to one day build a successful business, then you should be spending some time on forums like reddit.com entrepreneur, or watching videos of people documenting their journey on YouTube, or reading books about successful entrepreneurs, just so you can feed your brain ideas that have actually worked out for other people before. If you hope to one day improve your social skills and make tons of friends or even get a girlfriend/boyfriend, then you need to be spending time on forums like reddit.com, social skills, going through courses like the BeeFriend course, or reading social skill related books. Regardless of what sort of goals and desires you have, you need to be feeding your brain the right materials in order for it to solve those problems. And finally, step number 3, you need to be feeding it every single day. Using your brain to make your dreams come true is sort of like operating a steam engine powered train that also suffers from ADHD. It's going to take a while for you to reach your destination, aka your goal, and there's going to be a bunch of little problems your brain needs to solve in order to pull something off like building a successful business. So you got to keep stuffing coal into this train. You got to keep feeding your brain. Otherwise, you're just going to stop halfway before reaching your final destination. On top of that, this train is also very easily distracted. If you stop feeding it thoughts and content about a solution you want to solve, and you instead feed it information about something else, it's going to think to itself, hey, it seems like this new problem is more important. Why? Because, well, it's what the rest of me is currently thinking about. So it must be urgent. So I'm going to go this way and try to solve those problems first instead of going that way. Your brain focuses on whatever you've been feeding it recently. So if you feed it information about health, it will think about health. If you feed it info about finance, it will think about finance. But if you feed it information about what your friends are doing on social media, it will think about that instead. You need to constantly feed it information related to the problems you're trying to solve so that it remains focused on making your dreams come true instead of trying to solve problems like, I wonder how I can feel less jealous about that vacation Jim and Mary just took. So again, in order to use your brain correctly so it can solve problems and make your dreams come true, you need to instill belief by going for the small wins. You need to feed it the right materials it needs to solve the problem, and you need to constantly be feeding it every single day so it remains focused. This episode is sponsored by Audible. One of the best ways to implement steps 2 and 3 is by consuming books. Because when you're consuming the right books, you're feeding your brain the right information it needs to solve your problems, and you're also feeding it every day. I personally prefer listening with Audible in most cases over reading because it allows me to feed my brain during times where I can't really pull out a physical book, such as when I'm working out at the gym, eating food at a restaurant, or even when I'm getting a massage. Audible is constantly being updated. There are new and interesting self-improvement books being released every single month. So if you want to make your dreams come true, I definitely recommend you trying them out. Go to www.audible.com/improvementpill or text improvementpill to 500-500 to get a 30-day free trial, which gives you 1 free audiobook and 2 Audible Originals every single month. I recommend you guys to listen to Why Everything is Effed by Mark Manson, which I'm currently listening to. It talks about how to cultivate hope in a crazy world like the one we currently live in. So definitely check that out. Besides that, guys, stay tuned.